I would do a speaking engagement, people would come up to me and say, I've always wanted to be on Shark Tank and I've got to think of something great. I've got to think of something great. And I would say, no, you don't. Here's the secret. Take something that exists. Take a commodity. A cupcake is nothing more than a commodity. All we did was change the delivery of it, right? We took the paper wrapper off and we put it in a glass jar. That was it. How many things do you have around the house that you love, but when you use it, you think, this is great, I love this, but if only it did this. There's your product. There's your idea. Some of the most successful products or services are ones that people have made like 2 and 3 and 4 different iterations of, and they brought it to that point. Because I guarantee you, if you have something and you're saying, gee, I love this, but I wish it did this, someone else is saying it too. So take that. You don't have to invent something cool like fire to go on Shark Tank. You just have to take something like a commodity and make it better. Yes. Make it yours and see what happens.
You're listening to PowerFemme Radio. This is a podcast where ladies come together and try to share their opinions and empower each other to be better women in society.
Did he just say try? You're listening to PowerFemme, where women don't try, we do. I'm so excited for you guys to listen to this episode. I think it's my favorite conversation that I have had to date. Today, I'm interviewing Tracy Noonan. She went on Shark Tank and she went on to make millions of dollars with her company, Wicked Good Cupcakes. Maybe you've heard of it. Maybe you haven't. Maybe this is your first time hearing about Wicked Good Cupcakes. This story is unreal. I mean, just inspiring to say the least. I gotta give a little trigger warning. At the very, very end of this episode, Tracy opens up about her personal experience with sexual abuse, and she talks a little bit about it. We don't go too in depth here, but it is mentioned, and out of respect for you and your boundaries, I just want to make sure that you know that this is a safe space for you. We're gonna get right into it, and you're gonna be hooked right away because she's giving such valuable information for entrepreneurs. What I wasn't expecting to take away from this podcast was just the complete confirmation and confidence that I'm going to be so good. And if you're an entrepreneur who's navigating the ups and downs, like, you've got this and it's all going to be better than you could have ever imagined. I mean, I was so inspired by Tracy's many pivots that she had throughout her career and the many offers that she created, and how all of those little moments that seemed insignificant really led her to this big breakthrough moment when she created her most successful offer and shared it on Shark Tank and sold her company for millions. So if you're like, wait, Heidi, you're talking about the word offer a lot. Maybe you're like, what the heck even is that? And I do feel like I need to define what an offer is for you. It's actually really simple. I want you to think about giving someone something. The definition of offer means to give it to you. May I offer you a coffee? A coffee is literally an offer. May I offer you some silverware? May I offer you guidance on your diet? May I offer you a fitness protocol? Okay, you get what I'm saying, right? An offer is essentially the thing that you sell as an entrepreneur. It can be a gift that you have, it can be a service you provide, or it could be a physical product. And so the reason why I'm bringing all of this up is because if you want to have your own business and you want to make money doing what you love, the missing piece is an offer. That is the most foundational thing you can have for your business. You absolutely need an offer so you can sell it. And so I bring this up because I'm actually hosting another Create Your Offer workshop. It's a free workshop that we host. We have one coming up at the end of this month. It's the last day of July, and you can save your spot totally for free. Look, if you have no idea what you're doing and you kind of like low-key choke when people ask you like, hey, what do you do? Or like, hey, I want to work with you. Like, how much do you charge? And you like cannot breathe because you're like, oh, I don't know. And then you give it away for free. You can stop doing that and you can block off an hour of your time and you can come to the Create Your Offer workshop. Literally, there could be a way that you walk away and make more money selling your offer than you did at whatever previous job you may have had. In fact, just last time I hosted this Create Your Offer workshop. Desiree came to the workshop, and 2 days later, she turned around and sold her $5,000 offer that I helped her create inside of the Create Your Offer workshop. So if this sounds good to you, this is your chance to join us. You can click the link in the show notes now to save your seat. I can't wait to help you create your offers so you can get rich doing what you love and be known for what you do. I think I've covered everything. That's enough for now. Let's get into the episode. I'm so excited. Today's guest is Tracy Noonan. She is the co-founder of Wicked Good Cupcakes, the first ever royalty deal on Shark Tank with Kevin O'Leary. And she's a woman who has redefined what it means to start over. She went from being a teen mom living in poverty and losing custody of her kids to building a multi-million-dollar business that sold in 2021 and inspired founders around the world. She's now a mentor, living her version of happiness after decades of reinvention. This episode is for you if you are asking yourself, what the hell am I doing with my life? Because Tracy's journey proves that it is never too late to rise. Tracy Noonan, welcome to the PowerFemme podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, Tracy, you have lived 1,000 lives, it seems like.
It feels like it too, half the time. Yes, absolutely.
When did you first feel like you were meant for more in entrepreneurship and in your life?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think that that took me a long time. It took me a long time to actually feel worthy. And I know that's something that, especially women, a lot of women struggle with, right? When something happens in their life, whether they lose a job or they have a relationship breakup, anything, I know I do, they tend to take a lot of the burden and the blame and put that on themselves. And I'm here to say that in every case, it takes two, right? It takes two people to create a marriage. It takes two people to blow it up. And that's just one example. So I think over the course of my life, I've had several incarnations where I've taken a step back and said, you know what? I deserve this. I've either worked hard, or I've been a good person, or I've tried to save marriages, whatever the case is. And it's not just been a single moment for me.
So it sounds like it's just been lesson after lesson after lesson. I feel like the universe is always giving us the same lesson over and over and over again until we finally learn. And
Absolutely.
It can be so hard. It can feel like a slap in the face sometimes to find yourself in a position of, how did I get here again? How am I here again? You've started over again and again. And so I'm curious, like, has there been a specific lesson that has been the through line for you, that has been the thing that makes you realize, okay, I know I'm meant for more, and I know that I deserve better, and like I'm finally learning it this time?
Yeah. Well, I hope so. I hope I finally learned it. But it's really funny that you asked that question, because when I was young, when I was a child, I always felt like I was destined to do something big, right? And even now, like fast forward, my birthday was the 7th. I turned 63.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. And I still feel like I have one more thing to do. I have one more big thing to accomplish. And I don't know what that is. And I finally reached a point where, like you said, the universe talks to us. And I have to just follow the path and trust that it's going to lead me to where I ultimately need to be. And I have lived and done so many different things, and I've had a lot of tragedy in my life. I've had a lot of joy, as have many, many, many of your listeners, right? We've all experienced different things. I think what defines a person is how you handle it, especially when something is sorrowful, or makes you angry, or it just kind of turns you upside down. It's how you resolve it in your own mind as well as outwardly, that really creates who you are.
Yeah, so good, Tracy. It's like you are not what happens to you. You are how you react and how you respond.
Absolutely, absolutely. Take, for example, I was a young mom. I got pregnant in my teens. I actually lost that baby, which was really sad. I was almost 5 months along. And then in my very early 20s, had two children right away. And I lived in a 3-room tenement. My ex-husband at the time was a student. He's a wonderful person. It's just he had to work and had to go to school, and I had no education. I couldn't help. I couldn't pitch in, and I really wanted a career, but that wasn't to be. My dad didn't want to send me to college because I was a girl, and my dad has broken my heart twice in my life, and that was the very first time that he really killed me, was when he said that he wasn't going to allow me to go to college. And I was a junior in high school. I was 16 at the time, and I really took that hard because all my friends were going to school. Everyone was excited. They were planning, and so that was a blow. But getting back to my kids, we lived in 3 rooms, and my kids didn't have a bedroom. So what I would do is I would fold quilts up and I'd put them on the floor next to the couch, and I'd sleep on the couch near them. And I can remember thinking one night, like, these poor kids didn't fucking sign up for this. Like, this is not their fault that they're here. And I honestly had a moment where I thought, I have got to do something and elevate myself so that I can give them more. Again, their dad was doing the best that he could do, but it was just, we were so young. And, in retrospect, if I hadn't been pregnant, I wouldn't have gotten married, but that was the path that I chose, and it led me to so many other things. And I really felt like I needed to find a way to make their lives better, and ultimately my life better too.
What did you make it mean about yourself and your path when you didn't get the chance to go to college?
So, I'm 16. My father says to me, "No, you're not going to college." I had a really tough relationship with my parents, more so with my mother than my father. My mother, honestly, should not have had kids and should not have been married. She just was very unhappy, and that sort of reflected back on us. I was really afraid of her because she was a yeller and she was never happy, and so I was kind of timid. But when I was 16 and I found out I wasn't going to college, it was a huge fuck you moment. And the next year, I remember I wanted to go to school for the performing arts, so I made I scheduled auditions at North Carolina School for the Arts, Virginia Intermont College, and Boston Conservatory of Music. I stole my father's American Express card.
As you should.
I bought a bus ticket, and I told them I was staying at a friend's for the weekend. And here I am, like at 17, getting on a bus at South Station in Boston and going down south by myself.
Wow.
I'd never done this, obviously never done anything like this before. And I auditioned at all 3 schools, and Boston Conservatory actually gave me a scholarship. So I decided I was going to go there. I'd be closer to home, and my parents were furious. They were so angry. But
why were they angry? They didn't want you to go to school, or was it the path you chose?
I defied them. I went out and I auditioned and got into school, and they were so mad. So I went to school, had a great first year, did a lot. And mind you, I had been dancing with Boston Ballet. My parents never came to see me perform. No one ever did. Like, I had zero support for what I like to do. And, I do these podcasts and I feel like, poor me, poor me. It's just a fact, right? At the time, did I feel badly that no one came to see me ever? Yeah. Did I feel badly I didn't have support? Yeah. But that didn't stop me from doing what I wanted to do. Unfortunately, I was a dumb kid, and I ended up getting pregnant after my first year in college, and that was the baby that I had lost. And then we had gotten married, my boyfriend and I, and lived in the city. And that moment when I was looking at my kids sleeping on the quilt, I remember thinking, I've got to do something more. My ex-husband had an expectation. Even though he was very young, he expected me just to stay home, be happy, and to raise the kids. And I didn't want to do that. I felt like I needed to do more, even at a very young age. So we ended up getting divorced. And this is so awful. It's so funny, honey, because this past year was the first time I actually started telling people or speaking publicly about the fact that when we went to court to get divorced, a friend of mine recommended an attorney. I had no money to pay him, so he literally was like, whatever, went to court, answered the judge, didn't fight for me at all. I ended up having custody of my kids taken away from me.
Oh my God.
Because I had no money, I had no place to live, and the court ordered my ex-husband to pay me $50 a week.
Oh my God.
You know, I never even told my kids that happened. My youngest daughter knows.
How old were they?
At the time, they were 2 and 3.
Wow. And you never, ever told them?
Nope. Really never wanted to badmouth their dad. Like, we had a relationship. I had them a couple days a week. I'd have them every other weekend. You know, we got along. It was just, we just weren't right. We were too young. We were much too young. And I would never speak ill of their dad. I mean, that's not the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. So I ended up, I had a very good eye for photography. And I thought, you know, it would be really a great career to have, work in advertising. So I started working for other photographers as a photo assistant. And I made, depending on the job and the photographer, I would make between $50 and $100 a day. And I learned a ton. So I worked for a year, and then I got a studio, started my business, and almost immediately I became very sought after because I settled into a niche market. I photographed kids for advertising, and no one wanted to work with children because it's not easy and the parents can be tough. So I did that, and at that point, I was getting paid $3,500 a day just to walk into the studio, which was amazing.
Wow. That was real money for you at that point.
Of course it was. At that point, yes, absolutely. And it enabled me to do things for them. I actually bought my first house. I took my kids to Disney. And these things, like, other people kind of take for granted. For me, they were huge. Like, I can remember pulling up to my house and looking at my house thinking, I bought that.
Wow. I'm so curious to know, like, how it felt to be able to comfortably pay your bills and comfortably be able to take your kids to Disney and give them the life that you wanted to give them after not being able to give yourself the thing that you wanted for so long. And your parents didn't do that for you.
It was amazing to be able to do that for them. Like, I felt very proud of myself, and I felt successful. And then it happened. Reinvention number 1, right? Digital photography came along. And I had no schooling. I had no idea what a desktop was. I had money, but I was paying bills. I didn't have money to go out and buy all this new equipment because, as you know, when technology is new, it's very expensive. So I think I remember that the Nikon cameras at the time and everything you needed was around $50,000, and I just didn't have it. I had to pay rent for my studio. I had to pay my mortgage. I had to do all the things, right, on a limited budget. Because as a photographer, you're not booked every single day unless you get a project like you're shooting school books, which I used to do. But that's editorial, and that pays a lot less than advertising does. But I digress. So I hung on for about a year, and then my clients, were begging me to shoot digital. I couldn't do it. So I kind of lost my business. And at that time, I had married a second time and had my third child, my daughter Danny. She's the one I went on Shark Tank with.
Wow.
And so I started trying to find other things to do. Like I started an animal talent agency, and I worked with animals in movies and television and print. I did some photo styling. I did, God, what else did I do? I got my massage therapy license. I worked on people, and I got certified to work on horses.
Wow, you were
horses and anything I could do, right?
Yeah, you were getting scrappy, so scrappy, and which is like so needed for entrepreneurs. I mean,
100%.
Even hearing that like you reached a point where your skill set didn't necessarily equate to like the level of technology and how that was advancing and like how that was necessary to move forward. I'm like sitting here thinking to myself just how easy we have it. I mean, hearing that a camera was $50,000 back in the day blows my mind because, you know, my camera, like I have a camera on my iPhone and it just comes and like I have a whole computer and everything and it's like probably $1,000 for the iPhone, right? That right there, you are more resilient because like we just have it so easy now. So you have these entrepreneurial qualities of needing to be scrappy, but what I'm hearing is that there is a really valuable lesson here, which is like you either evolve with technology and you evolve as an entrepreneur and you continue to grow. It's not necessarily ever the end destination, or you die. You evolve or you die, or you pivot, right? And it sounds like pivoting was an essential part of your story, so that whether it be your marriage, your role as a mom, your role as an entrepreneur and business owner. And so I would love to hear how you ended up eventually somehow starting a cupcake business with your daughter. This episode is sponsored by Glow-C, aka my favorite drinkable skincare ritual. Glow-C is packed with collagen, hyaluronic acid, ceramides, and vitamin C to help smooth your skin, support your gut, boost hydration, and keep your glow game strong. It's not like other hydration powders that are basically salt and sugar in disguise. Glow-C has probiotics, and it's literally skincare you can drink. No pills, no complicated routines, just glowing skin on the go. So you can spend less time stressing and more time showing up and chasing your dreams. I drink Glow-C every morning before workouts, after flights, on long shoot days. It's a non-negotiable part of my PowerFemme routine. And because consistency is everything, I subscribe so it's always stocked and always supporting my glow. Go to getglowc.com/PowerFemme and use code PowerFemme to get 15% off your first month subscription. Ready to finally have glowing skin? Subscribe to Glow-C and show up as your most confident self. That's code PowerFemme for 15% off your first month. One more time for the girls in the back, use code PowerFemme at checkout. Glow-C is a daily beauty supplement and is not intended to diagnose, treat, or cure any conditions.
Oh my God. So marriage number 2 falls apart when I was married for 8 years. Met my third husband. He was a horse trainer, rode for the U.S. equestrian team. Met him when my kids and I were taking riding lessons. We had horses. I mean, we had a great life. And then I was at risk of losing it all because my photography business had dried up. Some of the other businesses just didn't provide as much money. And so I was constantly trying to find ways where I could work. And it's really interesting because I had a lot of exposure during this time to people who had a lot of money. And I can remember I would look at them and I would think, they have that. How do I get that? I never was envious or jealous or angry because I didn't have what other people had. I kind of looked at it as a motivational tool, even though maybe at the time I didn't know that's what I was doing. But I always remember thinking, like, how did they get that? And what do I need to do that? And at this point, education wasn't even a thing, right? I figured out how to do things, especially once we started Wicked Good and we had the cupcake shop, because I had no formal culinary training, nor did Danielle. Between us, we had high school diplomas. I was in my late 40s when we started that business, when we started our shop. And, it was funny when we started to create the jars to fill a need. A lot of people thought that was the dumbest idea they ever heard of. And so there's roadblocks that a lot of people tend to put in front of themselves. And I usually talk about, if I do a keynote or whatever, I have like the 4 common roadblocks that entrepreneurs will throw in front of themselves. And one is, I don't have enough money. When we started Wicked Good, we took a loan from a family member for $30,000, and that was to build out space, buy equipment, buy dry goods, and maybe hire someone if we could. So we didn't have any money. A lot of people think, I'm too old to start a business. Well, the day that we got on the plane to go film our episode of Shark Tank was my 50th birthday. So you're never too old. I don't have enough education. That was us. High school diplomas, no culinary training, just literally a shoebox of recipes from my grandmother. And then finally, people are going to laugh at me. A lot of people will not try to start a business because they're afraid of being ridiculed or laughed at. And honestly, we put cake in a mason jar. What could be more stupid than that? Or hello, Pet Rock. All these businesses that people started that ended up being huge successes, whether they were trendy at a time or they carried through and, spawned other like businesses.
Right.
What happened with us, right? Once people saw us on Shark Tank, a million other people started doing the same thing, putting cake in jars. It's not patentable, so anyone's able to do that if they're willing to do the work.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, I love for people to know and to feel that they can do the things they want to do. It's just really hard for some people.
Yeah.
I like to consider myself the underdog, like even to this day. And I have a soft spot in my heart for people who are an underdog and really want to do something. And I just want to lift them up and say, just try, just do it. You can do it.
Just do it.
I did it. Anyone can do it.
Right.
God knows, if I could tell you the beginning months of that shop, how crazy it was, and the learning, baptism by fire that occurred while we learned how to order. My sister came in and he's like, what do you need? And I said, I don't know. I literally said, I don't know.
You had no idea what you were doing at all, and you didn't have the culinary background, and you didn't have, you had never opened a shop before, a brick and mortar, anything like that. You had these thoughts of, who am I to be starting this at 50 years old, and what, absolutely. And no money, and borrowing money.
I'm exhausted. Now I'm up at 5:30 at the shop. I'm working till 10 o'clock at night. I'm literally falling asleep driving home, total shit show, until we finally got in a rhythm and finally started to figure it out. And I had some fabulous people who mentored me in the beginning, and then down the road, very, very well-known mentors who took a liking to me and were just wonderful and really helped solidify my knowledge, and just gave me pointers that were amazing and really helped define and helped us to grow the business.
Did you have the vision or foresight to know that Wicked Good Cupcakes would turn into a multi-million-dollar business when you opened it? What were your hopes?
To pay our bills.
Just to pay your bills.
And to finally get paid, and to give my daughter a business that she could then take and run with and have as her own. Literally, when we started putting the cupcakes in jars, our goal was to sell $3,000 worth of them a month, because that would pay our rent. That was our goal. And then the custom cakes that we did, or the cupcakes that we did, those would, pay for, our product that we needed to bake, and rent and all that other stuff. But
so your goal was I'm just gonna make $3,000 a month. That's my only goal.
we want to make $3,000 a month. Yeah, exactly. It was really funny.
When were you like, hey, I'm interested in going to this thing called Shark Tank?
October 2011, we opened our shop officially. December 2011, we started selling the jars online. And then I applied that March or April of 2012. And the casting director called right away. I had been a huge fan of the show, like watched the show and interesting. This will come back around later. And I always thought, like, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do to get on the show? And when we started putting the cake in jars, it was December, as I mentioned, we put it online. And we had this young man who was going to Salem State College reach out to us, and he ordered 2 jars for his communications professor. And I remember I literally wrote his note that went in the box that went to her. And she took both jars on a plane. She went through Logan. They let her through. She went to Nevada, ate 1 jar on the way there, and then saved her red velvet for the ride home. And when she went to McCarran Airport in Nevada, the TSA stopped her and said, "You can't take that through." And she said, "Why not? It's a cupcake." And the TSA agent said, "The frosting constitutes a gelatinous substance. That could be bomb-making material." And
What?
she's like, "Are you kidding me?" And he's like, "No, I can't let you through." So she said, "Can I take a picture of you?" And I have it somewhere, but she took a picture and he's holding the jar. And she wrote this piece and posted the picture and her piece on Boing Boing, and the story went viral. Like, completely took off. People were emailing and calling the next day saying, "Hey, have you seen the story about you guys?" and blah, blah, blah. And we hadn't. And we started getting calls from international press.
Was it good press or bad press, though?
It was kind of ridiculous because we were deemed, Danny and I were deemed a national security threat by the TSA and the Department of Homeland Security.
Were you worried that this was going to be bad for your business?
I don't know what I was thinking at the time. I think it was just so like, what is happening? And so the TSA caught so much heat for this story that the beginning of 2013, the head of the TSA came out and said, "We did what we had to do, and we made a decision based on the fact that this isn't your average run-of-the-mill cupcake." Well, boom, sales again. We went into Valentine's Day. And that's when I decided, you know what? I'm going to apply to Shark Tank because now the cat's out of the bag. People can see we're doing this. Other people are going to do this. And I applied. Casting called me the next day. And we had our interview, then did everything that we needed to do. We were assigned a production team that worked with us to prep us to go out to film our episode, and the rest is history. We went on the show, and
were you terrified? I watch Shark Tank, and I think to myself, like, what would I do if I was even standing there? Like, how do you prep for that pitch, and like, how do you get the confidence to stand in front of a whole panel of sharks who have the ability to make or break you? Because they could
100%.
They could totally embarrass you. I mean, all it takes is just like one bad moment for it to all go wrong. So what was going through your mind? This episode is sponsored by Dolce Do, my favorite luxury skincare line and the secret behind my glow up. I've been using Dolce Do religiously for over a year and the results are undeniable. My friends constantly ask what I've done to my skin because it has been a full transformation. If you struggle with dryness or early signs of aging like I did, then this is your sign. I am obsessed with the Dolce Blue makeup remover. It melts literally everything off and it leaves your skin feeling baby soft. The glass skin pads give you an instant smooth, dewy glow. And the Be Still Peptide Serum is literally Botox in a bottle. Dolce Do is your answer to glass skin, deep hydration, and firm, radiant glow. No needles, no injections, just skincare that actually works. It's skincare that feels like self-love and it delivers. PowerFemme listeners get 15% off your entire order with code PowerFemme at checkout. Go to dolcedo.com and use code PowerFemme and treat your skin the way it deserves deserves to be treated. Code PowerFemme gets you 15% off of your full Dolce Do order.
We were in front of them for an hour, and they do a really good job editing the episodes, and they stack the day. So they'll film 8 to 10 episodes in a day. That's why I noticed people are commenting a lot, like, Barbara's wearing the same dress, or Kevin's in the same suit. Well, that's why, because they film a bunch of episodes. And they put us in the slot right before lunch, which was great, because we have food. And to your point, of course you're worried, right? If one of them spits out the product and goes, ugh, this is awful, or you're doomed, right? Like, people are not going to order, or they might order out of morbid curiosity. But it's very, very nerve-wracking. And I remember so we were on season 4. I watched every season, and I wrote down every question that the sharks asked. And there was always the same questions. So you knew what to study and what to do. And then the production team also helps you. They work with you on your pitch. Right. And you start off with like a 90-second pitch and get it down to where it's very tight. And so I felt like we were prepared, but like the human element of it, like your nerves. And one of the things that people don't realize is when you walk through the doors and you walk out and you stop on the carpet, they actually stop filming and adjust lighting and do all this stuff. So you're standing there in silence in front of all of them, and they're staring at you and you're staring at them, and it's like, oh my God. And then someone from off in the distance yells, go! And then you have to launch into your pitch.
Wow.
You get no redos. They do not know who you are. They do not know your product. Like, it's everything that you see. And our pitch and our deal with Kevin is exactly like it was on the show. Like, we stayed true. Like, a lot of times there's due diligence that the sharks do after you've aired. Obviously, they're not going to just randomly give you money.
Okay, so if they close the deal with you there, it's not necessarily even a done deal.
At that time, only 10% of the deals actually went through.
Wow.
Which is really interesting. Yeah. Because either people get excited when they go on and they like overinflate their numbers, or it's just not a right fit, or someone gets cold feet and backs out on either side, whether it's the entrepreneur or the shark. So there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes before it actually even is consummated, if you will. I took a lot of flack on social media for accepting a royalty deal. Like, a lot.
I saw that. So, like, as I was watching the episode, I mean, all of the other sharks, the moment you step away with your daughter to talk about the deal that Kevin gave you, in that moment, all of the sharks are like, don't take it. You're going to lose money. That's so dumb. And you came back and you negotiated, which was awesome, because I would actually love to hear some advice for like being willing to push back in a moment of such high stakes to someone who is as intimidating as he is. In my opinion, he's the most intimidating shark. Like, what were you thinking? Like, oh my God, am I going to counter him? But also at the same time, like, were you thinking about what the other sharks were saying of like, that's a dumb deal? Like, how did you feel about that before you even accepted a deal with him?
So it was really interesting because Danny was so young when we aired, and she was listening to the other sharks. I was trying not to listen to them because I had to think about what I was doing.
Yeah.
The royalty deal really worked for us because our shop was making money. Right. And so think about it this way. If we had an equity deal, if the business doesn't sell, the shark's not going to make money. Mm-hmm. So how much are they really invested, right? Like, how much are they willing to do or help? With a royalty deal, every time you sell one jar, Kevin makes money. So now he's invested, right? Mm-hmm. Now he wants us to make money. And for me, that was the perfect scenario to get him to get us television. Because I knew right away, look, Shark Tank at the time had a viewership of 8 to 10 million people. Wow. That's like a $4 million commercial. We did $250,000 the night we aired. We paid Kevin back $1 a jar till his $75,000 was paid back. That took us 6 weeks.
Oh my God.
Completely paid back. And then the royalty dropped to 45 cents a jar. By the time we were acquired, we had paid him almost $1.5 million on 45 cents a jar. Like, think about that.
How much had you made?
We, at the time, I think at the time of our sale, we were doing 12 million.
Wow. Oh my God. And like, are you just like, what?
You know, it's really funny. I never took my foot off the gas pedal. Like, I never took a second to step back and say, wow, look at what we've done. Because even though I welcome competition and it's healthy and it keeps the business honest and it keeps people working hard, I never wanted anyone to fly past us. So I never took that time to step back and say, wow, look at what we've done. Because there was always more to do.
Right.
For me, I'm very type A and Danielle's very different. And that kind of was an interesting lesson for me as a mom to learn too. There's working in a family business is not always easy. It's wonderful if you can do it. And we did figure out a way to make it work. But she had to like have a come to Jesus moment with me at one point. We were a couple years in. And, you know, when you're in business, it's intense, right? I'd go on vacation, I'd still work.
Yeah.
If you work all the time, you can't not think about your business. And we had an amazing staff. Like, I could hand them the business and not worry about it, but you still think about it. Well, one day I was in my office and she came in and she shut the door and she said, I have to talk to you. And I said, what's up? And she said, I can't do this if you're not going to be mom anymore. Like, when we leave here, you need to stop talking about work and you need to be mom, because work is work and I need you to be who you're supposed to be. And I remember thinking like, oh my God, first of all, am I doing that to her? Am I really that bad? And I was. And secondly, it gave me pause to think about, you know, if I'm doing that to her, what am I doing to, you know, my husband who joined us, and how am I with my coworkers? So I had to really stop and think. And so I said to her, thank you. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry that I did that to you, and I completely understand. And so it was kind of a joke after that, right? If we were out, maybe we were out to dinner or lunch or something, or out doing something, and I had a question to ask her about work, I would always preface it with, I have a work question. Is it okay? Can we just talk about work for 1 second? And she'd start laughing and say yes. So I'd ask her the question, she'd answer the question, and then we'd be back like mother-daughter.
Right.
But it is not easy, even in the best of circumstances. We kind of figured out what each of our strengths were, and we kind of divided and conquered that way. But yeah, that was a moment for sure. I learned a lot. I learned a lesson.
Entrepreneurship and owning a business and the journey that we take, it's such a moment of reflection. I mean, it's just, you're constantly learning so much about yourself. And I would love to know what that moment showed you about your programming with money, given your upbringing. And I also would love to know, did your dad ever see your success?
Oh, so really interesting question. So we aired in 2013. We got our first update. We actually had 6 updates. I don't know if anyone else has had that many. 2 of them were joined with Kevin's other businesses, but we had 6 updates. So our first update was scheduled for the season 5 premiere. And I was living in the North End at the time in Boston, and I'm walking down the street and I get a call from my brother, my youngest brother. And he says to me, you're not gonna fucking believe this. And trust me, no good ever comes out of that, right? When someone says that to you. And at the time, my parents had moved. They were living in Florida. They weren't super warm and fuzzy, as I illustrated, so I didn't talk to them very often. My sister-in-law, who's amazing, she was the one who kind of kept ties with them. So they were living in Florida. I had been trying to impress my dad with all kinds of businesses, and it never seemed to happen. And so my brother says to me, Mom's in Israel. She's in the hospital. She went to Israel, she fell into the Dead Sea, and she has chemical pneumonia. And I'm like, what? Come to find out that both of my parents are in Florida and they both have Alzheimer's. Both of them. So they're down there, like food is expired, they're not paying their bills, they let their insurance lapse, like total shit show. My youngest brother and I fly down there and we're like, oh my God. We get my mother home. I put 30 grand on my American Express to fly her home because the nurse, he didn't want to fly anything but first class. So,
oh my God.
Yeah, we get my mother home. She goes immediately into a hospital in Boston. My brother flies my father home. Danny and I go down and clean out their house to get it ready to put it on the market. My parents are now back in Boston, and we try to put them into assisted living, and they were just too far gone. So my brothers and I had a meeting. I said, look, I'll buy a house big enough. We'll move them in with me. I'll take care of them for now and work and whatever. So I bought a 7,000 square foot house. Not only did I move my parents in, and now mind you, my dad was so far gone that he had to wear a low jack bracelet because he was a flight risk. Our doors were all alarmed. We had a bike lock on the fridge because they're in the bathroom, they're not thinking about washing their hands. I couldn't risk anyone getting sick if they were like pawing through food. Like, sundowners, let's not even talk about in the winter when I'd have to race home to get home and turn every light on before the sun set. Like, it was insane.
Wow.
And so not only do I have my parents, but my third husband, his parents are in Vermont. His father's dying. He has stage 4 cancer. His mother doesn't even know how to screw a light bulb into a lamp, so she can't live on her own. So we moved them in with us as well. And it was just 2 years of what the fuck. My father-in-law, who admittedly I loved more than any of them, died 6 weeks after moving in, which was sad. And actually, I was at QVC. I was doing a segment with Kevin, and I knew he was dying and I didn't want to leave, but I had a commitment. So I went to QVC and he died that night while I was there.
Oh my gosh.
And next morning I did my on-air and then went right home. It finally got to a point where it was just too much. Like, it was getting dangerous, right? My dad didn't know if it was Tuesday or August. So in answer to your question in a very long-winded fashion, no, my father never saw my success. And the one person who, at that point in time, I had wanted to prove that I was worthy of his respect and admiration and love, didn't even know. That was tough. But, you know, my parents went into a nursing home. We continued to grow. And then our 9th year into business, we had made it successfully through COVID. They were like the best 2 years we had. At the time, my husband and I were living in Charleston, South Carolina, because we could work remotely now. We sell the business to Hickory Farms. It was the easiest acquisition in all of acquisitions because we literally had done a project with them that they sold out and loved. And so we called them and said, hey, you know, we're thinking of selling. And they're like, we want to buy you. So
wow.
it kind of like evolved that way, which was great. We sell the company. Here I am. I'm like in my dream house. I have this great life. I have a lot of friends down there. Danny comes down to visit. I go back to Boston. And then my husband gets up one morning and he comes downstairs and he says to me, yeah, you know, I think I'm done. And I'm like, what? And he said, yeah, I think I'm done. I'm going to call a divorce attorney. And he just left the kitchen and went in his office and found an attorney.
Did you see this coming at all?
Not that way. Like, there were signs, but let's be real. 3 marriages. Now we have all kinds of entanglement with money and houses and you know, was it perfect? No. We never fought. We never yelled at each other. He just was done. And so we were divorced and I moved back to Boston and I had a horrible year that first year. I was just a mess. Because we had been together for 27 years, married 25.
Wow. Oh my God. I have chills. I mean,
And honestly, at this point, you start to wonder, I mean, who could not wonder, what the fuck is wrong with me? Why can I not
Right.
manage to hold a relationship together? What am I doing? And I started to internalize and take a lot of the blame. And like I said in the beginning, it takes two people to get married, but it also takes two people to blow it up. And so that whole first year of, depression, I didn't sleep in a bed for the first 8 months. I slept on my couch because going to an empty bed just represented in my mind at the time like I had failed again and I was alone. And remember, I went from my parents' house to marriage, to marriage, to marriage. So I never lived alone.
right.
Ever. I never had to do any of this. And for as much as I was independent, now I'm like, oh my God, taxes. How the fuck do I do this? Or like just everything. And after about a year, and it was rough, like I had some really great friends, and my youngest brother and his wife were wonderful, and Danny, of course, like really supportive and tried to like wrap their head around what I was feeling. And I was really grief stricken, and I was really angry. I was really angry. And the day that I drove back to Boston from Charleston, I started a journal. And I journaled almost every single day and just wrote down what I was feeling, what was happening, what I was doing, and never really looked at it. And that first, you have a year first, like Mother's Day, Christmas, anniversaries, birthdays, all of it. And Christmas was approaching, and I was thinking, you know what? I've been to France several times. I wanted to go and study and be there for like a little bit of an extended period. I never thought I would go alone, but
An eat, pray, love moment?
Yeah, kind of. And the other thing too was, aside from schooling, I really wanted to be able to continue to grieve and break down and cry and not worry that other people were like, oh, the fuck, when is she gonna get over this? Like, come on now, it's been almost a year. Like, where is the Tracy we all have fun with and know, and who's funny and laughs and does all kinds of stupid things, and where is she? And I really needed to be where people didn't give a shit. Like, I could sit on a bench outside and just cry and no one cared, and I could get it out of my system. And so I did that, and I started writing even more. And I joined a Facebook group of women, 350,000 women. It was for women solo travelers. And what I did was I would write, and then I would post my journal entry. I had hundreds of women respond to these posts, and it was crazy. It was like uplifting and amazing and kind of sad. Some of them would share their stories, and I had people from Ireland or England or Italy inviting me to go stay with them or like go visit them, like this amazing network of women. And it really like inspired me to create a book. So I wrote a book, and it's just basically all my journal entries. And I contacted an entertainment attorney, and she's like, I don't think I would publish this if I were you. You're probably going to get sued because I wrote it.
Oh, because the stories were piping hot tea.
Oh my God. Yes. So this was just actually recently, like about 2 months ago. And so I'm like, all right. She said, go walk on a beach. Think about how important it is. But if you decide to do it, I have to get a forensic attorney, and you're going to have this crazy insurance, this crazy errors and omissions insurance. You're looking at about 20 grand just to start.
Oh, wow.
So I talked to my boyfriend, and I said to him, this is what the attorney said, and I really don't know what to do. And he said to me, he goes, do you think maybe it was just enough that you wrote it? And I'm like, yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe the fact that I wrote it and like exercised all of that
Right.
shit out of me. Maybe that was enough. So what I did was I talked to my publisher and I said, make me 12 copies, like print 12 copies for me, and I'm going to give them to select family and friends so they can actually see what that year was like for me, because I was in a very bad way, and if I didn't have some of these friends, I may not be here today. Like,
Right.
I was that depressed.
Yeah.
And while all of this is going on, I had another demon from my childhood that I decided I was going to tackle, because now I'm like, I'm doing this, all of it. When I was a 9-year-old girl, I was sexually abused by a parish priest. And that's when like the Boston Globe Spotlight did this whole unveiling of this. Mitchell Garabedian, the most amazing attorney, I hired him actually to represent me, was the one who was representing hundreds and hundreds of people. And he blew the lid off of all of this. So here I am at 60. I contact him and I talk to him and I'm like, Mitch, like, I'm 60 years old. And he said, the priest won't go to jail because too much time has elapsed, but you will send a message to the church. We're going to fight the church. I'm going to represent you. And that's exactly what we did. I sued the Archdiocese of Boston. I got the second highest payout that they allot. I won my case.
Wow.
And it was just really cleansing. And what it did was it actually opened my eyes to some quirky things that I do that I didn't know why I did them. Like, for example, since I was 17, I had moved over 20 something times. The year I left Charleston to when I sued the church, I had bought and sold 6 properties. 6. And Mitchell said to me, Tracy, as a survivor, you're a runner. That's what you do. He said, no place will ever feel like home until you're settled. You'll live in a house. And he was so right. I'd be in this new house and I'd be thinking, why do I not feel right? Why am I not happy here? Like, what is going on? And so the church has to pay for the survivor's therapy. So I found a really good therapist and we talked a lot about it, and he absolutely confirmed what Mitchell had told me. And it was really great to like finally learn I wasn't a nut job just because I was a nut job. There was a reason behind why I kept bouncing around and around and around and around and just could not put roots down anywhere. So that was just a wonderful moment or revelation, and really helped me to start moving forward.
Tracy, thank you so much for like sharing this and for being so brave to open it back up publicly and to actually go out and do something about it. I know I'm certainly learning a lot just hearing you talk about the quirky things that you do as a result of that. And a reason I actually started PowerFemme, the podcast, is, I mean, not just the podcast, PowerFemme as a whole, as my own business, is because I wanted to create a safe space for women to chase their dreams and to talk to each other and create their own opportunities instead of having to wait for a man to give it to them or have to ask for it from anybody. And I'm not trying to make this about me, but I've moved over 30 times and I'm 31 years old. And I grew up as, just like you, an entertainer. I was an actress turned entrepreneur. And so I was very much in the entertainment space and like had experiences. And so I'm literally getting emotional right now just like talking to you, because hearing that thing, I'm like, oh wow, I've moved a lot. Like that makes so much sense. And it wasn't until I met my now husband, but like I met him and we moved in together, and like for the first time in my life I lived somewhere for 2 years, and then we moved and I lived there for 3 years, and now we live in our home together and we're married now, and like we've already been here for a few years, and like it's been a grounding experience being able to find a healthy relationship. I would love to know kind of more about how that's played out for you in your relationships and how you've been able to help your children be better and use their voice, because I know that your courageous act of doing that, I know you didn't need the money. You're successful. You were just doing what's right. And you are showing by example, and you are taking your power back. And I think that that's so incredible.
Oh, and I'm so sorry that you had to go through that, because first of all, no one should have to.
It's ridiculously common how many women experience it, which is so sad.
Oh, absolutely. You know? And with the church, it was even flipped. So I was an anomaly because I was a girl. It was mostly young boys who had been molested.
Yeah.
And so I was 9 years old. I never wanted to go with this priest. My mother kept dropping me off with him because for her generation, having a priest as a family member was like a big deal, right? And so I was watching the news one morning. My ex-husband and I were in bed watching the news. It was a Saturday. I'll never forget it. And I always knew something happened to me, but you know how you know? And like stuff like this gets so stuck down inside of you. They're showing the priests and they're talking about the scandal, and they show the priest who molested me. And I sat up and I said, that's him. He's the one. He molested me, and I'm like out of my mind. And my ex-husband was like completely indifferent. Like, didn't even want to talk about it. And I was saying to him, I think this happened. I remember, how do I know? And like, we're talking, the phone rings, and it's my mother. And she says to me, are you watching the news? And I said, yes. And she said, well, did you see, Father Forey was on the news? And I said, yes. And she said, did he do anything to you? And I said, Mom, first of all, I want you to think about this. What 30-year-old man wants to hang out with a 9-year-old girl? And I hung up the phone. So I had called Mitchell's office one time prior to calling his office when I turned 60. And at this point in time, my kids are all in high school. They're young. So I call his office, and a woman answers the phone, and she says to me, oh, you're a girl. Can we interview you on TV? And I immediately panicked. I'm like, no, I don't want my kids to find out this way. I don't want them to know right now. Eventually they'll know, but I don't want them to know right now. So I hung up the phone, and I just, again, stuff.
Yeah.
And finally, after all this shit happened after my divorce, I thought, you know what? I have to start fixing things, or I'm not going to be able to move on. And so I called Mitchell's office again, started working with them. They explained to me how the process worked. I'd have calls with them to prep me for my interview. They don't call it a deposition, they call it an interview, but you're literally in front of two lawyers, a private investigator. These are all people representing the church. And then you have Mitch and Dan who are on your team. And I can remember thinking, you know what? Again, champion for the underdog. I'm going to post something on Facebook, and I'm probably going to take a ration of shit. But there's got to be someone else out there who is going through this, and they're not saying anything. So I did this big long post, and I had the most support. Not one person said anything negative. All love, all support. But in messages, I heard from people, my brothers both are dead. They killed themselves.
Oh my God.
They couldn't stand the secret. I know other people who knew people who died. I know other people, I've been molested by an uncle. I've been molested by, and so these people, a couple of them actually moved forward as adults and went after the perpetrators. And I felt like, good. This is what should have come of this. This is exactly what I hoped for. I'm so happy I was able to help people. I am what I am. I'm an open book. I will share whatever. When I do keynotes, when we have questions and answers, people can ask me anything. It doesn't bother me. I don't know why. I just feel like I'm kind of here for that reason. And so it was difficult, and I can tell you that so now everything's done by Zoom. So when we did everything, I was with one of my dearest friends. He was my witness. He and I had talked about this for years and years, and actually I didn't realize how angry he was that this had happened to me. And so he went through the process with me, and I'll forever be grateful to him and his wife for their support. And we just hit it head on. He did his thing, I did my thing. And I can remember sitting there, and everything comes back. Like, I could remember his voice. I remembered like the dashboard of his car. I remembered he'd take me to Phillips Candy House in Dorchester and buy me candy. And then he'd take me to South Boston, and it would happen in a parking lot at Castle Island, which is well known in Boston. And just like all of it. And I remember, oddly enough, being so angry that I could remember what he sounded like, but I couldn't remember what my grandmother sounded like. And I lost my grandmother when I was 12 years old, and that like really pissed me off. I'm like, why can I remember this scumbag's voice, and yet my dear sweet grandmother, who I loved, I can't remember what she sounded like.
Wow.
And so it was like a myriad of emotions, and I went through, the arbitration, and I was awarded, and like it was all done. And I can remember the arbitrator was so nice, him saying to me, go to the door and open the door and scream, get out, and get rid of everything that had anything to do with that part of your life, and just get rid of it. And I did.
Yeah.
And
wow.
A couple years ago. And
I mean, Tracy, no amount of money or therapy or like screaming will ever remove the pain of your experience. What I'd like to know is, how have you learned how to trust your instincts, and what advice do you have for anyone who's listening to this podcast, whether it's they're in a difficult relationship, a hard situation, they don't have control over their body, or even if they have an idea or an inkling, or there's just something inside of them that's whispering to them, hey, you've got to do something, even if it's a business idea. Like, what advice do you have in terms of listening to and following your instinct now?
Now, looking back, I have to say you really need to love yourself and appreciate the fact that you are worthy. You are worthy of being loved. You are worthy of being respected. You are worthy of being listened to. All of it. All of it. Each of us as an individual is worthy of certain rights and feelings, and living our best lives. And if it's something bad has happened to you, go get help. Don't wait. What are you waiting for? If you want to start a business, start your business. What are you waiting for? My biggest thing is tomorrow isn't promised to us. None of us have a guarantee that we're going to live to be 100, and we can keep putting off these things we want to do, or fix things that need to be fixed. Like, today's the day. Now is the time.
Mm-hmm.
Do what you need to do. And there are people out there who will believe in you, who will help you.
Yeah. Even if it's not your family, because in your situation, your family did not believe in you.
No, my parents certainly didn't. My brothers were good, and my sister-in-law is fabulous. If I could have picked anyone to be a sister, it would definitely have been her. Oh. But even that, like, coming clean to them and telling them that had happened was difficult.
Yeah.
And you just have to reach a point, I think, and you have to just put on that suit of armor and just be like, I'm just going to do this. Yeah. And yeah, it's going to be ugly, and it's going to be uncomfortable, and I'm putting myself out there, but you know what? What's the alternative?
Right.
Not living your life to its fullest extent? No, that's just wrong. That's a tragedy.
Right. It's the very reason you should do it.
Well, exactly. And I think that, I was asked this past year to sit on a board of an organization in Boston. Well, it's actually a national organization. It's called build.org. And what we do is we mentor and encourage inner city high school kids who want to be entrepreneurs. And it's entrepreneurship, as you know, can be a very lonely place.
So
right?
lonely,
Especially
yeah.
if people don't have that mindset. And I really think that, yeah, you can learn to be an entrepreneur, but I think that spirit is inside of you and it's intrinsic to you. And so these kids who want to do these fabulous things, and by the way, these kids are brilliant. They might come from families that don't understand, or maybe they don't speak the language, and they have a lot of responsibility placed on them because they might be the only English speaking person in the household, or they don't have income, or whatever. To see these kids rise to the occasion and what they can do, and knowing that you've helped and you're there along the way saying, look, no matter what happens, I believe in you. I know you can do this. And I wish I had someone say that to me throughout everything. And it makes a difference just knowing. And you're right, to your point. Even if it's a stranger who is saying that, at least someone is paying attention. Someone cares.
I think it's so incredible that you've been able to take all of your experiences and not be a victim, but be a survivor, and to champion young entrepreneurs and even young women and men to use their voice and just keep going and not succumb to the victimhood that can absolutely happen when hard things happen. I look at you, Tracy, and I see definitely an entrepreneurial spirit, but I see a warrior, and I see just a complete and total PowerFemme when I look at you. Like, you are the embodiment of a PowerFemme, and I'm so honored to have had this conversation with you, Tracy. And
Thank you.
yeah, and I know you have your book, so you decided that you're gonna release your book. Are we releasing a book?
So I have a book I'm releasing, but it's a totally different book. It's a
Okay.
trashy beach read. It's super fun.
I love it. We need that. We need that.
Yeah, exactly. It was a lot of fun to write. It really made me like stretch and get outside of my comfort
Yeah.
zone. So it's called My Husband's Wife, and it'll be available on Amazon probably within the next week or so. It's
How
being
exciting.
uploaded right now as we speak. I have a television show that I wrote, and I have a production company that I'm working with. I wrote it with a very good friend of mine. His name is Justin McKinney. He's a stand-up comedian, very funny. And I have a dear, dear, dear friend who I would be very remiss if I didn't thank him. His name is Doug Coop. He's like my manager, but he's my voice of reason. He's my support system. He's everything. Him and his family, they're just wonderful. They're so supportive, and I met them while I was living in Charleston. So Doug had worked in television and had modeled and knows the industry very well. So he's been just amazing getting me in front of the right people. So that's called What the Family, and it's based loosely on Danny and I going on Shark Tank, but it's about my family and their Alzheimer's. Because I went to a support group when my parents were first diagnosed, and one of the things I noticed was the people who were talking and sharing stories, there was a lot of humor. And a
Totally.
lot of, and you need it.
You need
Otherwise,
it.
You're just going to curl up in a ball and cry because you have this threat. And I had 2 people with it, not just one family member. And so a lot of the stories were similar. You'd say, oh my God, my mother says that, or my aunt says that, or my grandfather says that. And so I thought, what if there was a story that really realistically portrays what it's like to be a caretaker of someone with Alzheimer's, but it's done with humor and respect? You would have the most ravenous, loyal audience, because
100%.
people would sit there and say the same thing we used to say at our support group, like, my father says that, my mother says that. And caretaking is exhausting. It is exhausting, whether it's Alzheimer's or ALS or cancer, or just name what people what people have to face every day, and to be able to sit down and for half an hour watch something and kind of get a chuckle and relate to it, and shed some light on something that affects millions of people.
It's such a gift. It's such a gift. My father passed away from brain cancer a couple of years ago. Oh, God.
Yeah.
And I just remember feeling so alone in it because, you hear like, oh, it's so rare. I also had a grandfather who had Alzheimer's too. And it is like, you can feel so lonely. And so it's just the ultimate gift to be able to find funny moments in the saddest moments. I remember laughing with my sister on the day my dad died. And like, I just didn't know that you could find humor and levity in such a dark, hard moment, but it's such a gift to be able to. And so the fact that you've taken your life story and you have turned it into and packaged it into like a show, I just think is so cool. And before we wrap up, Tracy, I'm actually an actress turned entrepreneur, which I had mentioned to you, and a lot of what being a PowerFemme is it's really the permission to chase what lights you up and sparks joy in you. And I know a lot of our listeners, they are multi-hyphenates, right? And I think the world tells us you have to be one thing. But what I'm hearing from your story is like, you were also in entertainment. You also desired to be on stage. You also had many businesses. You're also a mom. And now you're writing books, you're writing TV shows. And it's like, it's not too late. And it's so cool. And so like, as somebody whose original dream was to be on stage and be in front of people and bring joy and light. And I think that a lot of that does come from maybe the traumatic childhood. It's like, hey, see me, right? But I would love to hear from your perspective, because I do know that those skills of wanting to be seen and be an actor or be famous or like write and create, those translate so well into business skills. And that's something that can't necessarily be taught in school or in college.
Right.
And I would love to hear from your perspective, like how has your entertainment background and your creativity and your multi-hyphenate like persona, how has that fed your entrepreneurship? And how do you think that can feed the listeners who are listening into this episode and are feeling so inspired by you right now and feel seen in even their hard things right now?
So it's so funny you say that, because I am a class A actress. I am a great actress. And like, take my photography business, for example. I wasn't really trained in like lighting, or I just had a great eye and I could take a great shot. So I would hire all these assistants who knew way more than me technically. And I would go and I would interview. I'd go to an ad agency. They'd call me in. They'd tell me what they wanted. Can you light the shot this way? Can you? And I'd sit there and I'd say, absolutely. 100%. This is going to be amazing. And I walk out the door and want to throw up, because I got the job and now I had to figure out, how the fuck am I going to do this? And I'd go back. I had a great assistant. Her name was Karen. And I'd say to her, okay, this is what we have to do. And we'd figure it out. And I think fake it till you make it, right? Like, no.
My dad always said that to me growing up. My whole life, he always said, Heidi, fake it till you make it.
Yep. Well, there's your dad.
Yeah.
It's true. And you're gonna look. We sold cupcakes, and I would go to these networking events in Boston, and the businessmen would literally call me Cupcake, and it would piss me off, because I wanted to be seen as a serious business person, and being able to like just get along with everybody, having that outgoing personality, it does open a lot of doors. So I think that background and that, like you said, wanting to be heard, and that kind of like, fuck you, I'm gonna do this no matter what, it all comes to play, and it all comes together and really helps you build that tough skin that you need and the confidence to go out and try something and realize that it might fail.
Yeah.
And so what?
So
it's
what?
not going to kill me. I'm going to go back and I'm going to try something else. And that might fail. Do you remember I said to you in the beginning, when I had always wanted to be on Shark Tank, and I thought like, I have to think something great. Well, whenever I would do a speaking engagement, people come up to me and say, I've always wanted to be on Shark Tank and I've got to think of something great. I've got to think of something great. And I would say, no, you don't. Here's the secret. Take something that exists. Take a commodity. A cupcake is nothing more than a commodity. All we did was change the delivery of it, right? We took the paper wrapper off and we put it in a glass jar. That was it. How many things do you have around the house that you love, but when you use it, you think, this is great, I love this, but if only it did this. There's your product. There's your idea. Some of the most successful products or services are ones that people have made like 2 and 3 and 4 different iterations of, and they brought it to that point. Because I guarantee you, if you have something and you're saying, gee, I love this, but I wish it did this, someone else is saying it too. So take that. You don't have to invent something cool like fire to go on Shark Tank. You just have to take something like a commodity and make it better. Yes. Make it yours and see what happens.
That is such good advice, Tracy. Unreal. Okay, before we wrap up, I just have one last question for you. Okay, I want you to imagine that you are going to the biggest meeting of your life to date, bigger than that business acquisition meeting. Okay, biggest yet. And I want you to imagine that you're driving in your car and you pull into the parking garage, you park your car and you walk over to the elevator, you get on and you hit top floor, very tall building going up. The elevator goes up, it stops at floor number 1 and on walks a little girl. You have 30 seconds to impart your wisdom onto her. How do you want her to feel after listening to your advice and after having encountered you? What would you say?
I would want to know what she loved, and I would want to know what she wanted to do, and I would just tell her, you got this. You got this. No one can stop you. The only person who can put barriers up, like we talked about, is you. So just take your idea and run, and you're going to be just fine.
That is amazing, Tracy. Tracy Noonan, thank you so much for coming on the PowerFemme podcast. It's been an honor to interview you and talk to you today.
Likewise. And thank you for sharing your story.
Hey girl, by the way, if you love the PowerFemme podcast, it would mean the world to me if you left a heartfelt 5-star review and let us know what you love the most about the show. And if you love this episode in particular, do your friends a favor and send this episode to them. Sharing is so caring. And when you leave reviews and you share these podcast episodes, it really is what keeps this podcast alive. And it's what keeps us coming back every single week to give you episodes that you love so you can grow on your entrepreneurial journey and in your personal life. So I love you so much, PowerFemme. I am pulling for you. Thank you again for spending your time with me, and I will see you next week.